Meta.
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 Metaverse is here. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, it's a thing now. Facebook. Bye-bye, Facebook. It's now Meta from here on out. That's right. Zuckerberg did a live stream just yesterday on October 28th and announced that Facebook is officially Meta. And wow, I mean, a lot of information to absorb, a lot of information we want to share with you guys. Rory and I have not yet discussed just between us our own thoughts and opinions about Metaverse and what's to come. So hang on. It's going to be a wild ride. This is going to get real weird. I'm telling you right now. So welcome to another episode of the Big Picture Business Podcast. Today, we're talking all about Meta, and my mind still hurts. So hi, Rory.
Hi, Meta.
Meta. Yeah.
So I was putting together kind of like a pros and cons of like, is the metaverse going to be good for the world? And the more and more I put it together, the more and more I realized that my cons list was like 2 to 3 times longer than my pros list. I think we're probably going to be talking about like how the metaverse is going to destroy society.
Pretty much. Like, I hate to say it like that, but yeah, I'm completely freaked out. I got to be honest. I see what it can do for certain types of demographics. I totally get like how positive it can be. I can see how it's going to revolutionize the gaming industry. I see so many positive things, but I'm still really freaked out. So just a quick overview here. I think it's important to really cover like what the heck is the metaverse for people who are listening to this and like have no idea what's going on. How does the metaverse work? How is it really going to change our lives from an entertainment standpoint, workspace? I mean, there's just so much.
We'll dive into like the pros and cons that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Right.
We're predicting.
Yeah. And then, then we're going to give some predictions. Those will be fun. Predictions of what's going to happen to the world as a whole because of the metaverse.
And I want to preface the whole thing on the predictions by saying, I really hope it doesn't go that way. You know, it's just.
Well, we can do good predictions and not so good.
Okay. There's got to be some positivity in here for Zuckerberg. It can't all be negative.
Yes. Speaking of positivity, that whole video thing that he did was all positive.
Yeah. Okay, it was, but he also, he went into it, like prefacing the whole video by basically saying, we're pretty far out from this happening. And we want to be really clear that like security is very important to us. And we're putting all the like proper measures in place to make it a safe environment and blah, blah, blah. And I pulled a quote that I think was important. He said, the metaverse is an embodied experience. And that right away freaked me out. I'm like, what? Wait, what? Why am I embodying this experience? I don't understand. It's a screen. And then he said, it isn't about spending more time on screens. It's about making the time that we already spend on screens better. Okay, but won't this promote a lot more time in augmented reality?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we're going to talk about. So let's start at the top here, because we got to explain what is the metaverse.
Okay. So what is it?
For everyone who hasn't been aware of this. And if you want to actually like see the whole video of what Mark released and see it for yourself, all the positivity of it, it's meta.com, meta.com. But before you go there, let's finish this podcast out.
Listen to this.
Yeah, listen to this, because I think you'll go into it with a different frame of reference than if you just accept what is being marketed to you.
And heavily marketed, by the way. Quick side note. Did you see that around I think it's the 4-minute mark, Mark is standing in front of this bookshelf and directly behind him is a bottle of barbecue sauce. What? Like, I paused it and I'm like, why is there a bottle of barbecue sauce? Like, they needed, like, was it, it was perfectly designed, like, was it some sort of ad placement, or was it just, he likes it or forgot it was there? Anyways.
No, I'm pretty sure it was product placement.
Well done, because I caught it and immediately wanted barbecue.
Oh, that sounds good.
I know. Okay, so what is the metaverse, Rory?
Why are you putting it on me? What, you think I know what the metaverse?
Well, that's kind of why I threw it out there at you like that, because honestly, we really don't know yet. We're being fed this information where it's like, it's going to be this phenomenal user experience where virtually we'll be able to put on glasses that Mark claims will be normal looking glasses, where we'll be able to be in digital spaces with one another. So for example, like if I wanted to, be in the music studio with Rory, all I have to do is put these glasses on and it's me. It's actually me. The way that I look, I can show up and say, hey, Rory, what's up? Let's work on music together. And in real time, we'll be able to do that. It's like the Jetsons is like coming to fruition. And
we're going to be referencing a lot of movies in this one.
It's crazy. So that's only one aspect, right? So that's a very basic overview of like its whole purpose is to create the experience in which you are having these very real life-like experiences with your friends, family members, people you play games with in a work environment. Forget this like grid-like Zoom, situation. Now going into the metaverse, it'll be where I can pick an avatar if I want. I can show up as a robot to our calls, and I can be on the beach and it will look real. Eventually
probably feel real, which is something we're going to get into. But it's not only a virtual reality world, it's the blending of virtual reality and reality that is going to make things very complicated very quickly for a lot of people. And again, we're going to get into that. But what it essentially does is allows you to enter a virtual world like you were talking about. But the other side of it is to bring the virtual world into our own real world. Actual things we own can get into this world. Yeah. Be a part of it. And there's implications that are going to happen that were not discussed in this hour and a half video. And we're going to discuss them because it's really important to understand these things. In my opinion, writers, artists, movies, books over time have warned about the downsides of what is being created here. And that's what we're going to dive into. There's this fundamental aspect of my being that tells me this is not correct. And I'm in technology all day long. I mean, both Rory and I, we do technological stuff. And for whatever reason, I know I keep saying it's like broken record, but it freaks me out. Well, okay, but think about this. Like I'm making a pros and cons list. The cons list just kept expanding. And I'm a pretty optimistic person. Yeah, you are. You are Mr. Optimist. Yeah. So I'm always seeing things, especially like if you ask my wife, I'm seeing things with rose-colored glasses all the time. And I'm seeing this and I'm like, no, not so rose-colored glasses, because the glasses that we are going to be putting on are going to change society and change us fundamentally. Fundamentally, physically, mentally, it's just going to change the way we do advertising. It really, and I'm all for change. I got to say, I'm all for change. I think change is great for growth. We have to grow, but this feels like it's in a very dangerous way. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about like how the metaverse works and how you connect to it, how you interact with it, what, the different programs that they have that they're working on to bring this to life. Horizon will be the social platform for people to interact in the metaverse. I'm assuming that Facebook will still be around, Facebook, the platform, but Facebook is what we call like, 1-2-dimensional at most. It's flat, right? What Meta is wanting to do is make a 3D interaction for its users. So Horizon will be the big name that you're going to want to know if this is of interest to you and you want to be a part of the metaverse. Yeah. And currently you can access the metaverse because it does exist already. It's just a very rudimentary version of what they're wanting to do. Yeah. With Oculus, which are like VR headsets. Goggles. Yeah. Now, they do have glasses coming out. So, just like normal glasses, they have sunglasses, things like that, where you are going to be able to enter into the world without having these big headsets on. So other ways you can enter the metaverse right now is like through computers and tablets and phones, but it's not a fully immersive experience.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet. It's still 2D experience in a certain context. Really, it's going to move to glasses, contacts, and we'll get into some other things that we're thinking is going to happen. But there's also another company called Spark AR, where basically what they're doing is they're creating augmented reality tools and situations for digital objects that could be replicated from the physical world and then put into the digital world. So if you have, a favorite mug that you like to use, you can replicate that into a digital object so that you can use it in the digital world as well.
I think the example that they gave, or that Mark gave, it was like after a concert and these two female avatars could actually buy something for their avatar. That makes sense.
This is where like creators can sell and share digital items.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which is going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a whole other level than people just purchasing in their games things for their avatars that they actually pay real money for.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be like, this is the digital representation of you.
Mm-hmm.
So how you look in the digital world is going to matter, especially if you think about that. You're in a work environment, a business situation, and they want a dress code. Well, guess what? Now you've got to buy clothes not only in the real world, but in the digital world as well.
Great. It makes me think like the earliest metaverse days was that Zoom call between the lawyer and the cat. Yeah. I promise I'm not a cat. Yeah, that'll be my avatar from here on out. I'm going to just be a cat. That'll be it.
And then it'll be on loop saying you promise you're not a cat.
I'm not a cat. Yeah. And then, okay, so now let's talk about the headset with facial sensors so that you can actually see someone's expression. Because right now, like if you're playing like just a regular video game on a screen, you can't really see expressions. It's kind of flat. Now imagine you're inside the game and you're wearing something that they're developing now called Cambria, where it's got sensors on it, where you can like lift up your eyes or, stick your tongue out or whatever, and it'll emulate that. It'll be able to see your exact emotions by having these sensors, which completely freaks me out again. So if you listen to the episode called Digital Marketing Trends with Stephen Edelman, I was talking about how I was totally freaked out, even wearing like earbuds still. I'm plugged in. I just got the iPhone 13 Pro, which I love. Great phone. Highly recommend it. But I refuse to buy the Bluetooth earbuds because I'm totally freaked out. I don't want that on my head. So try to convince me now to put something like this on my face. I don't think so. I don't know. I don't want someone tracking my facial sensors.
Oh, but one of my cons is that it's also going to track all your vitals because of how, like, not with that headset, but how they are setting up other technology that's going to be wearable technology. They're going to be able to track your health.
Why not?
What's going on with you at any given moment, changes in your health. Now think about this. This is implications of what could potentially happen with that. Now, I want you to think about how someone could get access to that information. Let's say an insurance company.
How convenient.
Right. Yeah. And they find out that you're not as healthy as you were when you signed up for the policy, and then they jack up your rate. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, here's the thing. Mark's like, this is going to be the most secure thing ever. Right. But everything can be hacked. Everything. And we've seen it over and over and over again. Facebook does not have a good track record with information. Their information is stolen all the time,
including credit card information from Facebook business platform. So how is this going to be any different? If I'm putting my credit card information to buy my avatar mug that I want to have in the digital space in the metaverse. Is it going to become where I have to buy a cryptocurrency to trade within Horizon Marketplace? What is that going to look like?
Yeah. I mean, it's just going to get crazy. So but let's talk about some of the good stuff that is going to happen. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I'm totally the naysayer here, but yes, there are some positives. So let's do a quick round table back and forth on a few positives. What do you got?
Okay. So first off, I think it's going to be more intimate than using current technology.
Agreed.
We're going to have these avatars that look like us, which makes the experience more real. They're going to be able to interact in a 3-dimensional environment with people all over the world, at any time that you choose. And yes, we can do that now with Zoom or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But it's when you get immersed in that environment, you could actually go on vacation with people without actually having to travel anywhere.
Right. Yeah, that part is very cool. I think that will be very helpful, especially it would have been helpful during COVID, right? We could just travel to each other's spots. That would have been cool. So I think that from a therapy standpoint as well, if you're needing to work through some sort of PTSD, some sort of trauma, whatever it might be, to be able to reenact certain types of environments and play it out the way it was supposed to go or whatever. I see the benefit of having things like that. I also see the benefit of, a doctor back to Iceland needs to be in an ER at Stanford. Well, now you can. So from a medical standpoint, I think that's very cool as well. But how will it affect the travel industry? How will this affect the entertainment industry? Yeah. I mean, Zuckerberg gave this example of this woman at a concert, right? And she was like, hey, join me, friend. And the friend was then in the concert with her, but she wasn't paying to get into the concert. But she was there virtually. So how is that going to work?
Yeah. I mean, they probably would have put a paywall in front of it. Yeah, said, hey, you want to join the concert? Click this button. It's $100, whatever. Then you're there and you're in the experience. But to your point, what about all of the supply chain line, essentially, that it takes to get someone to a concert somewhere else in the world? The flights, the hotels, the Ubers, whatever.
This is WALL-E. Like I've said before, we're headed into WALL-E world where it's just
not WALL-E's world from Christmas Vacation.
No, I'm talking the Disney movie WALL-E, right? Yeah. Where it's rotund individuals, basically just on these. Were they jetpacks? I don't even know what they are, but they're just on these seats.
They were, floating chairs essentially that could move and were automated, but everyone was just stuck in the digital world and was not experiencing anything in the real world.
Well, that's a huge concern for me. It's just we're already so sucked into all of this, And by Mark just saying, at the beginning of this episode, by saying it's not about spending more time, it's about, the experience, about the time we're already spending. And I call bull on that because you're going to get sucked in.
Yeah.
And then you're going to feel like you're missing out because all your friends are there. It's going to be
oh, yes. Well, let's talk about that.
What
is that going to do? See, we can't even stick on the positives.
Sorry, I know.
We'll get back to some more positives in a moment, but really think about this. What is it going to do to society? Now, if you can jump from 8 hours of work straight into a concert for 2 hours, and then go hang out with your friend in Belgium for an hour, and then go play some games. And then now you're skiing in the Alps. What ends up happening? Complete and total burnout. Think about
overload.
This.
System overload.
Yeah. People are not going to be able to function because they're going to push the boundaries of their own experiences because everything is so new. It's so exciting. It's so involved. They can do anything they want, anytime they want, probably as long as they have enough money. And they're not going to want to stop creating those experiences.
Addiction.
And they're not going to sleep.
Yeah.
They're not going to sleep enough. calling this out before it happens, but it's going to lead to more addiction to prescription medication, illegal drugs, because people are going to be using stimulants to keep themselves awake to stay in the digital world.
Yeah. Not that the coffee industry needs a boost, but yeah, I mean, I see that positive for the coffee industry. But I agree. I think the implications on our physical beings is going to be even more so than it already is. I mean, I used to stay up all night long when Halo 2 came out for Xbox. And it became the very first gaming platform where you could talk on live with these big headsets. I would stay up all night long and play games with my friends all night. I'm just imagining my 14-year-old self again. If this was available to me then, oh, you kidding me? I'd be so sucked into that world. I'd never be coming out of it because it's all my friends, it's just, so yeah. So in terms of the anxiety, the depression, the not knowing between, real world versus augmented or virtual reality, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Okay, well, let's dive into that in a second, but let's flip it on the other side, because I want to talk about like what are the benefits of the real world being overlaid before we get into the downside of that experience. Okay. So when we look at like the real world being overlaid with unique experiences and objects that you could only see with this technology, that's going to be useful. It's going to be useful. Think about this from a business or a marketing perspective. You're going to be able to advertise to people and let them try things on. I mean, we've already got some of this, right? With augmented reality, where you can look at your camera and it puts the glasses on you or it changes your hair color, right? It's just going to go to a whole new level of actually feeling like you're physically putting on clothes that you can then purchase from a store, and then they send you the real stuff. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's cool.
It's going to like that. That's a benefit to me. But what is it going to do to us long term? I think there's going to be a disassociation from reality. Mm-hmm. And the lines are going to become so blurred that people are not going to be able to tell the difference. What's real, what's not. Okay. And my example of this goes back to a movie. This is not like, yes, The Matrix could be like one way of explaining this, but I'm talking about a movie called Existence. And this came out, I don't know, 15 years ago or 20 years ago or something like that. But it's a Jude Law movie, and where the people are in a game within a game, but it's such a real experience. They don't realize that they're in a game. And when they come out of the game into the real world, they still can't tell if they are actually in the real world. And that level, and it's not that far off, right? We're talking like this could happen within a decade of this potential issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about what our kids are going to experience. They're going to be they're going to be the test generation for this kind of stuff, which is why it's so important to identify some of these cautions early.
Well, yeah, and then their kids are going to be probably one of the first generations that will never know in the world without simulated reality or blurred lines of reality, right? And then what happens, right? It's like people who don't remember what World War II was like and didn't live through it and don't believe that happened even. Wow. Like, think about that in the context of your kids growing up and never having the ability to discern what's real and what's not.
I'm sure people are listening to this and be like, well, it's up to you guys. It is. I mean, it's up to us as parents to educate our kids or any future generation on like the cautions around things. But I got to say, back to like my younger self, I had parental controls, I say with air quotes, on all kinds of screens when I was younger. I hacked around that so fast. That was one of the first things I learned how to do.
Yep.
Kids are smart. Do not underestimate, because if they want something, they're going to figure it out. I think that this world is going to open up a whole different side of who people can become, whether that's intentional or not. It's just blurred lines, like you said. Now, okay, let's talk about one thing that I think is going to be the most positive side of this. You ready? Big positive, big ups to Meta on this one. Individuals who are immobile, who can't get around. We're talking, paraplegic, quadriplegic, people that are confined to a wheelchair or a room. This is an incredible opportunity for them to be able to feel like they're back out traveling in the world again. And I feel like that's such a huge benefit to these individuals who otherwise would not be able to experience these things.
Now, let me flip it on the other side and mention, what about if someone's blind? How are they going to be able to even participate in this world?
Well, I know that seeing impaired individuals can still participate in social media in general because things are read to them.
Yeah. But the whole immersive experience is so visual that I think it's going to create more disconnects, and potentially certain people with certain disabilities will feel, they'll definitely feel left out in a way that even now that they don't.
Yeah, that's a very good point. They talk about inclusivity and how that's everything to them, communication, reaching out to others. So yeah, if we were standing there at the panel, that would be a really good question. What kind of technology are you developing to include, the sight seeing impaired?
I do think that it'll have a positive benefit of allowing people of other cultures to get to know each other on a deeper level and having more tolerance for each other. At least that's my hope, because I could see that being a possibility because of people being so easily able to interact with everyone. The downside is that I actually think it's going to create more of a class system than we already have.
Yes, that's my thought.
Because the people with money are going to find ways to keep people without money out of their worlds that they create.
Yeah.
And, for example, let's say the entry point to be able to access something was $1 million. And you were just like, I don't have $1 million. So what am I supposed to do? You can't get access. In our current world, we do have some of that, right? But we have relationships that allow us to bypass that sometimes, right? So, it's the friend who is able to get you in because they have a connection or something like that, right? That's not going to work when there's an absolute paywall that you have to put up the money, because what is the metaverse looking for? It's looking to get paid. In the Facebook crash episode where Facebook went down, I talked about how Facebook is a publicly traded company that is beholden to their shareholders. And because of that, everything they do absolutely has to earn a profit, or else the whole business goes down and it can potentially disappear, or the people at the top lose their jobs.
Right.
It doesn't even matter. Mark can lose his job because the board members have that oversight that they can appoint anyone. That's how big business works. When you put that on top of this new world building, blurred lines of reality that we're putting together, where everything has to create a profit, even though they say in that video, we're doing it at cost or whatever, long term, the business has to create a profit, and that's the whole thing, is like, it has to create a profit in order to continue. It's got to be better profit year after year after year. Mm-hmm. That's the cycle. When you put that into the context of what is being created here, you start to realize that eventually you're going to be locked out unless you have the money to put up into this world and pay. And it's going to create more divide and people will be left out.
I feel like that's the world we're living in right now, though.
It is, but it's like a new extreme.
Look, the latest new extreme is vaccinated or not vaccinated.
Yeah.
And the severe polar differences between the two and how it's dividing families, let alone friendships, right? We're talking families. And now we're talking about metaverse when it's already so hard to get a teenage kid away from their cell phone. We're talking divide on so many levels, I don't know what the advertisement space is going to look like for this. And I'm sure when we gain more information, we'll be able to speak to that quite a bit more. I want to go back to something you mentioned really quickly about offering at cost. What Rory is talking about, if you have not seen the video yet, Mark Zuckerberg was saying, the technology we're going to offer to the general public, to anyone who wants to use Meta at the cost that it is to develop the glasses or whatever else that, they deem worthy at cost for individuals. So that means that it's just more accessibility for everyone, right? So
yeah, I mean, they want to make the entry point as low as possible,
right?
Because where are they going to make the money? From the advertisers, from you paying for stuff, right? Now, what happens when the whole world goes online into this world, and it's the only place that exists like this? And not that others couldn't, but let's say this is the big one that covers like where people spend most of their time, and they're not spending the time in the real world. They're spending their time in the digital world all the time. That means all the advertising dollars go into one place. That means lack of competition in advertising, meaning, okay, they're going to control everything of the advertisers. The advertisers will then be stuck with whatever Meta gives them and says, hey, we're seeing a huge trend in how much, in how many people are interested in this. We're going to jack up our rates 50%. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
I mean, we already have limitations on that as it is, like we have like limited platforms online that we can market and advertise where you actually get, eyeballs on stuff and get results. Imagine all of that consolidated into one, maybe two platforms.
Yeah, I see it like Google, AdWords, and then Meta, and that's going to be what we're left with in the long run. I don't think Google's going anywhere. I really don't.
No, probably not. But Google's going to come up with their own version of this.
I don't know. I mean, sure, maybe, but I think that the people that are already familiar with using Google is such a specific demographic that won't want to have to learn a new technology. That's another big downfall. Elderly individuals.
Google Glasses already exist. They've been trying to do it.
And it failed so miserably. Nobody wanted it because it didn't go anywhere.
Because they didn't have the world built to make it work.
So it could be Google technology hand in hand, with Meta.
One maybe other player could be Apple, maybe Microsoft, but it's going to be scarce. You're going to have a lot bigger companies, and Amazon could play a role in some way in this as too, but it's few and far between.
Yeah. And then what is Elon going to do? He wants his hand in it. So what's what's going to be his contribution? He's now the richest man in the history of the universe.
Well, yeah. And I want to just, throw something else out there. Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and let's say Bill Gates. They took 0.5% of their wealth.
Yeah, they could end poverty.
All four of them put it together. They could eradicate from the world.
But why do that when we can create the metaverse?
Right, because that's profitable. But think about this: if they did that, what would that mean, like from a number standpoint? Well, I want you to think about 0.5% of, let's say you have $100,000. And then if you have $100,000 and three of your friends have $100,000, and all you had to do was give 0.5%, and you could drastically, change the world. Do you know how much that actually is out of $100,000?
How much?
$500.
So I'll go ahead and give 15%, and let's just all make this happen. I mean, why not? End some suffering. There's so much more that we can get into here. I mean, Rory took notes like you wouldn't believe, everyone. Like it's really impressive. There's just... Oh,
yeah. I mean, I could go on and on about this.
We didn't even talk about Project Nazare, the full augmented reality glasses. There's so much here. So, something that Mark did mention, which was my, 50th red flag. He said, you're going to be able to, with Project Nazare, to have your thoughts understood to where you don't even need to be able, or so you won't have to like gesture in some way. You can just think it and it will happen. What?
Okay. So, yeah, that gets into future predictions, right? So future predictions, I think there's going to be implants, ocular implants and brain implants. Elon Musk's already working on brain implants. It's already in the works.
Creepy.
So where they literally cut open your skull, plant the chip in, and put the piece of your skull back.
Why? It's like microchipping people.
Well, yeah, but it's so that there's complete control of vitals at all given time, ability to restore function to people who maybe lost function in limbs, things like that. Like, a lot, there's good and there's definitely downsides to all of it. Now, with this in particular, people are probably going to be able to have different types of implants that allows them to be fully immersed at all times, no matter what. This is future predictions. Okay. Don't know the timeline on that, but I could definitely see that this is where it's going. Probably a sooner prediction on my end is that we're going to have full body immersive suits, because we've already seen some of this, but this is where you put on a suit, you go into the metaverse, you put on your glasses, and everything that happens becomes a tactile experience for your whole body. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So that when you shake hands with someone, you feel their hand.
Feel it. Yeah.
Right.
You give someone a hug for real.
Yeah. Give someone a hug. It's going to change interactions with people, and it's going to pull people more into that world, that digital world, where they don't have to live in the real world to have the experiences they want. Okay?
Here's something I predict. Okay. I just thought about this. What will happen to our avatars when we die? They will still exist. So I imagine that after speaking, and it's all going to be recorded, after speaking for so long, if you wanted to call up your loved one who has passed, you could sit there and have a full-on conversation with them in the metaverse. Eventually,
it'll be trained through AI to replicate how that person was.
All their movements, their mannerisms, all of that. I can guarantee that there will be a paywall right in front of you. You want to see your loved one, however much money, it's going to get weird.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave this thought with everyone. Everything always seems great and like it's going to, improve the world and our lives, with little of how it could make it worse. Right. That's what we were being presented with that video from Mark Zuckerberg. Okay. But what I want you to look at is social media. Okay. The creators, including Mark, never thought about how their platforms could be used to spread misinformation, to influence elections, or to suppress populations of people. Mm-hmm. Yet it has all happened, and they haven't been able to control it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this will happen again in the metaverse. And unfortunately, its effects will have the potential to crumble society as we know it.
So on that very positive note, I really am hoping that there are some major shifts that happen here. Major shifts where it's just for certain industries in the beginning. It's used in a professional manner. Maybe it's just workspaces first, something, but it's not going to be, because it's not where the money is, right? But in my heart of hearts, I want it to be simple and something that is easy and inclusive and everyone can use if they want to. The biggest part about all of this is just be educated on it. Know what you're signing yourself up for when it's time to do it. I'm sure everyone's going to want to check it out. I have to, even though I don't want to, because it's part of my job to understand these things and bring all of you this information.
Yeah. And I will say, Mark, prove our predictions wrong.
Please.
Do it.
Do it now. All right, guys, that is it for this week. Thank you so much for spending some of your very valuable time with us. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.